wars can end. Even when hatred burns hottest.
In a harrowing operation against Japanese forces during World War II, the United States unleashed a devastating attack on Truk Lagoon in February of 1944. This event was instantly likened to the notorious Pearl Harbor assault in December of 1941. Nestled within the Caroline Islands, Truk Lagoon functioned as a crucial oil and supply center for the formidable Japanese naval fleet. The encompassing coral atoll offered a secure sanctuary, and was so heavily fortified with anti-aircraft guns, airfield, and shore batteries that it garnered the nickname Gibraltar of the Pacific. As the relentless Allied forces advanced, rendering the island progressively inhospitable, the Japanese initiated a painstaking withdrawal of their troops and supplies in 1944. The unexpected American onslaught caught the Japanese off guard, culminating in the rapid disintegration of their defenses. Unearthed by Spanish explorers in 1528, the Pacific outpost of Truk was already teeming with inhabitants. Before colonization, the Philippines comprised a diverse array of islands and mountainous landscapes divided by a 40-mile reef with numerous entry points. This sector of the West Pacific is situated within the Federated States of Micronesia and lies roughly 1,000 miles from New Guinea. In the mid-1850s, Spain formally laid claim to the territory, but eventually sold it to Germany after the Spanish Armada's crushing defeat in 1898, leading to the loss of Cuba and the Philippines to the United States. In the aftermath of Germany's defeat in World War I, the nation was forced to relinquish its meager colonies in Africa and the Pacific. Sensing an opportunity, Japan claimed Truk Lagoon as its own territory. The Imperial Japanese government embarked on a massive construction effort, building a harbor, military barracks, and supply depots on the land, transforming it into the primary base of operations for the Japanese Navy as they plotted their continental expansion. Truk Lagoon housed a significant portion of the Japanese fleet and nearly 40,000 soldiers. The Imperial Navy further expanded the base at Truk Lagoon to accommodate its Fourth Fleet, the South Seas Force, in the wake of China's collapse in early 1939. The invasion and subsequent occupation of the Philippines led to the Fourth Fleet's integration into the combined fleet and the creation of up to 5 airfields in the region. Land airstrips emerged on Itan, Moauen, and the Param, while Dublin and Moyne were equipped with seaplane bases. Dublin also hosted Navy bases, including a floating dry dock boasting a 2,500-ton cargo capacity. Truk Lagoon's strategic position made it an ideal staging ground for the Imperial Navy's offensive operations in 1941 and 1942, deploying carriers and battleships to the area. The formidable presence of the Japanese Navy and Air Force in the region enabled them to respond rapidly to Allied maneuvers from New Guinea to Solomon and Gilbert Islands, the Marshalls, Wake Island, and the Marianas. In August of 1942, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, commander of the combined fleet, established his headquarters on the Yamamoto, the largest and most fearsome warship ever built, within Truk Lagoon. In addition, the Musashi, the Yamato sister ship, transported Admiral Minichikoga to Truk. As darkness loomed over the Pacific, the island fortress of Truk Lagoon stood as a menacing symbol of Japan's military might, casting a foreboding shadow over the hearts and minds of its adversaries. The strategic value of Truk Lagoon for the Japanese Pacific Fleet surged in the aftermath of Yamamoto's demise in April of 1943. Prior to the commencement of World War II, whispers of a clandestine imperial fortress being constructed on Truk proliferated amongst American and British forces, bestowing upon the island the epithet Gibraltar of the Pacific. As the war waged on and American advances persisted in the Pacific theater, the island acquired the reputation of Japan's Pearl Harbor. However, American intelligence wasn't entirely accurate. Truk had limited access to wet or dry docks, and ships docked in the lagoon depended on Dublin for food, oil, and ammunition supplies. Recognizing the imminent arrival of the Allies, the Japanese army took it upon themselves to bolster their defenses. Between November of 1943 and January of 1944, the 52nd Division of the Army overhauled the island's anti-aircraft defenses and coastal batteries, erecting additional bomb-proof tunnels, subterranean safe rooms, and machine gun emplacements. The island's facilities were expanded to include 2 surface steel tanks and a combined capacity of 35,000 tons, and an underground tank capable of holding 10,000 tons, augmenting the 80,000 tons of fuel already stored on the site. Among the new installations were a 3,345-foot airstrip for bombers, a submarine base, a 2,500-ton floating dry dock, an aviation repair station, multiple radar systems, a torpedo boat base, and 5 additional airstrips. The island's defensive arsenal comprised dozens of anti-aircraft guns, dual-purpose guns, machine gun emplacements, and other artillery systems. By the time a United States task force attacked Truk in 1944, repairs had been completed. In late 1943, Douglas MacArthur and Admiral Chester Nimitz, commander of the United States Pacific Fleet, initiated Operation Hailstone, an all-out assault on Truk. Codenamed Hailstone, Nimitz appointed Rear Admiral Mark Pete Mitcher to spearhead the mission. As early as 1944, the Japanese recognized that an invasion was imminent, and they detected 2 B-24 Liberator bombs from the Marine Corps flying over the area. The Japanese High Command remained oblivious to the fact that the United States was orchestrating simultaneous attacks in the Marshall Islands, New Guinea, and the Solomon Islands. In response, the Japanese Navy dispersed its forces across various islands, inadvertently weakening their overall strength and squandering resources. Compounding the threat to Japanese supply ships were U.S. Navy submarines stealthily converging on the waters surrounding Truk. Admiral Minichigoga, who helmed the entire Japanese fleet, mandated an immediate evacuation of the port and the salvage of as many valuable assets as possible from the island. They were preparing for a permanent departure. As darkness enveloped the Pacific and the shadows of war stretched far and wide, Truk Lagoon stood as a grim testament to the looming specter of death and destruction that haunted all who dared to venture into its treacherous waters. Upon analyzing the intelligence gathered from the 2 Liberator bombers, Task Forces 50 and 58, commanded by Vice Admiral Raymond A. Spruance and Rear Admiral Mitcher, respectively set sail towards Truk. According to U.S. Navy records, the formidable American fleet included over 500 aircraft, 4 new Essex-class carriers, Yorktown, Essex, Intrepid, and Bunker Hill, the Enterprise, 4 light carriers, Balliol Wood, Cabot, Monterey, and Cowpens, 10 cruisers, 28 destroyers, and 6 new fast battleships. The task forces arrived at Truk on February 17th of 1944 and immediately dispatched 72 fighter planes from their carriers. The Japanese forces were high on alert for 2 weeks, but then there was a brief pause in the fighting. During this time, 45 Japanese fighters took off into the sky. Some of the pilots didn't know that their radars couldn't detect aircraft flying low, so they were vulnerable. The fighting went on for a few minutes, and then 45 more fighters joined. Despite the relentless American onslaught, the disorganized resistance stood little chance. It's estimated that 30 planes were downed and another 40 were rendered immobile due to strafing runs. Concurrently, 18 American Avengers unleashed fragmentation and incendiary bombs upon the island, wreaking havoc upon the Japanese garrison, while U.S. submarines sank numerous anchored merchant ships. By daybreak, the majority of the island's principal structures lay in ruins, consumed by raging fires. Once home to 370 Japanese Zeros stationed at 5 different airfields, only about 100 remained operational by morning. The merchant tankers Hoyumaru and Ikokumaru were sunk by a barrage of 70 torpedoes fired by American submarines and hundreds of bombs dropped by American aircraft. As the remnants of the Japanese warships prepared for a daring escape under the protection of a meager number of aircraft, the vessels managed to reach open waters. The fleet, consisting of the cruiser Katari, destroyers Maikasi and Nawaki, auxiliary cruiser Akagi Maru, and a minesweeper, was swiftly encircled by American aircraft. In response, Admiral Spruance steered a ship directly towards the beleaguered Japanese vessel, initiating a tense face-off. The American warships made quick work of their crippled adversaries, with only the destroyer Milwaukee emerging unscathed. As darkness enveloped the war-torn Truk Lagoon, the atmosphere grew ever more ominous, amplifying the sense of foreboding that permeated the air. Flames flickered across the horizon, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance in the night, mocking the futile efforts of the Japanese forces that had once called this strategic stronghold their sanctuary. With every passing moment, the inescapable reality of their crushing defeat loomed larger, a grim reminder of the merciless nature of war and the pervasive shadow of death that haunted every corner of the Pacific battleground. The American naval forces emerged triumphant in their assault on Truk Lagoon, which ultimately became the world's largest ship graveyard. In addition to the over 17,000 tons of fuel lost from Japanese storage tanks, more than 200,000 tons of fuel were lost from merchant ships. The Japanese fleet suffered significant losses, including 30 merchant ships, 6 auxiliary ships, 3 auxiliary cruisers, 4 destroyers, and 2 light cruisers. The unexpected loss of over 4,500 lives further compounded their defeat. Truk Lagoon's neutralization paved the way for the Americans to continue their campaign towards Japan. The Japanese forces would still have to endure the battles of Okinawa, Peleliu, and Iwo Jima. In 1969, famed French explorer Jacques Cousteau led an expedition into the lagoon, uncovering the wrecks of 12 Japanese ships. The vessels were clustered together and found mostly intact, with explorers astonished to discover the remains of numerous Japanese sailors still inside. The Japanese government ensured that these sailors were given proper burials as a result. Today, Truk Lagoon attracts tourists with its stunning scenery and crystal clear waters, despite its depths harboring a vast collection of sunken ships, aircraft, and supplies. If you enjoyed learning about this absolutely fascinating piece of naval history, be sure to like and subscribe to Military Uncovered. Share this video with others and let us know what topics you'd like us to cover in the future naval history videos. Your engagement helps us bring more intriguing stories from the depths of the ocean to the surface, so we appreciate that. Keep on doing what you do. Later.